weekly slots available on Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1, and on irlonestar.com. Start your own podcast, create your first YouTube channel, and be on TV. Contact Lone Star Community Radio online at irlonestar.com or call the station message line at 936-647-3776.
Thank you for listening to Lone Star Community Radio. This program was broadcasted and recorded live from the LSCR studios in downtown Conroe, Texas. Lone Star Community Radio is supported by listeners like you. Donate and sponsor today. For more information on getting involved with Lone Star Community Radio, contact us at lscrstudios@gmail.com or visit us online at www.irlonestar.com.
Welcome to Veterans Air, the Veterans Hour. I am your host, douglasb, and you're listening to your source for news, talk, and uncensored commentary here on the Lone Star Community Radio. You can listen to new shows the first Tuesday of every month at 1 p.m. or thereabout. And you can listen to past shows at www.veteransair.us. Follow us on Conroe's FM 106.1 and 105, Facebook Live, YouTube, and wherever you get your fine podcasts. As always, a little housekeeping before we start today. You can contact Veterans Air through our website at www.veteransair.us. Leave us a message, or better yet, text us in studio on our Google phone at 936-344-3083. Before we get started today, I have to read this because I'm about to go off on a rant. My radio voice. The views and opinions of today's program are solely those of the views and opinions of the host and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of this station, its programming, sponsors, or advertisers. In the studio with us today, we have our friend Stephen Zogal, EA, AE? EA. Hey,
Road
hey.
agent.
Hey. Stephen, as you know, is the owner of Spring Tax Advisors, and he's going to tell us what changes to the tax law the big, beautiful bill contains. But first, let's talk about the changes happening in Texas. And this is where I'm about to go off on my rant. Let's talk about SB 5. You all remember SB 3 from a couple of months ago? Well, it's back. SB 5 in the Texas Legislative Branch. SB 3 died in September when Governor Abbott refused to sign it. That bill would have effectively outlawed CBD as we know it today. We thought that the issue was a bit dead, but oh, no. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick and the Texas Senator Perry decided to resurrect the bill and now call it SB 5.
Is that like Pet Cemetery?
It's kind of like Pet Cemetery because SB 3 and SB 5 are eerily similar. There's a couple of word changes, but the bill is the same. Were there changes to this bill for SB 5? Hardly. This will outlaw CBD for tens of thousands of veterans and reclassify them into medical marijuana patients. But wait, the VA does not recognize medical marijuana, nor do they treat chronic pain. This will force veterans to illegal opioids, alcohol, and other substances to help them cope with the physical and mental disabilities that they incurred while service to their country. What this will do will increase veteran suicide rate and cause pain and suffering to the veteran community that is just trying to cope and lead productive lives. Lieutenant Governor Patrick, Texas Senator Perry, and the rest of the Texas Legislative Branch, pay close attention because this is for you. Mark my words. By passing this bill, you would declare war on Texas veterans. What we did to make you hate us so, I do not know. What I do know is that this bill will cause pain and suffering. It'll increase veteran suicides. And when it does, you will be personally responsible. You will have the blood of veterans on your hands that can't be washed off. I call for every veteran to call their Texas representatives and senators and have your voice heard about this issue. We did it before, we can do it again. Now we get to talk about the big, beautiful bill. I'll come off my soapbox.
Oh, man.
And if you haven't read the big, beautiful bill in its entirety, and I haven't, but Stephen here has read all 900 pages of it.
All 900.
Because he's that detail-oriented. Now, the big, beautiful bill includes significant changes to Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, that's SNAP, primarily impacting work requirements and state funding. It raises the age for able-bodied adults without dependents who are required to work to receive SNAP benefits from the age 55 to the age of 65. It also reduces the flexibility for states to waive these requirements. Additionally, the bill shifts some SNAP funding costs to the states, requiring them to pay a percentage of the benefits. If you're a veteran and you're in need, you could apply for SNAP. And if approved, you'll get some funds made available to you to buy groceries. The big, beautiful bill further regulates the SNAP program and changes such things as the work requirement, where it used to be 55 and under, is now raised to 65. But that's not all. The bill increases the age for mandatory work requirements for able-bodied adults without dependents from 55 to 65, meaning more people in this category will need to work or participate in work programs to receive SNAP benefits. The bill restricts states' ability to waive work requirements, even in areas with high unemployment or limited job opportunities. Now, there's a lot of confusion over this work requirement because it actually doesn't say you have to go to work. It says you have to have community engagement, I think is the words that they used.
Well, I think whenever the big, beautiful bill, in that terms, it was more that the work requirements could be split between charitable work, between school, between actual, working for a company. And I believe, but stop me if I'm wrong, it was 40 hours.
40 to 80 hours. They gave the states some wiggle room in there. And that's per month, not per week.
Right.
You don't have to work full time.
So I think, in terms of my views and opinion, right, that it's actually a good thing. I mean, this would require people to actually pitch into the communities.
Yeah.
Why is that a bad thing? I don't view that as being particularly bad.
I don't think that is a particularly bad thing. It's no secret that Veterans Air contributes to Tunnel to Towers and the Montgomery County Food Bank, and we do this regularly. Because I'm of the opinion that if you're hungry, I'm going to feed you.
Yeah.
Everybody should be able to eat. Don't care. But if you're sitting at home and you're doing nothing, and you expect me to feed you, that's not going to happen.
Right.
You got to do something. And look, there's a plethora of community engagement that you can do. There is a plethora of part-time jobs that you can do for 40 hours a month to get SNAP.
Even go down to a dog shelter. I'm sure some of them would love to be, pet for a few hours.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, there's on our city TV, there's actually an ad for the animal shelter looking for volunteers to come walk the animals.
Yep.
Now, everybody's aware knows my Apex Predator posse, and they want to go for a walk. They're couch potatoes, but they want to go for a walk. Unless it's wet outside, they don't like to get their paws wet. They're just a little bit spoiled. This change to SNAP This bill shifts some SNAP costs to states, requiring them to pay a percentage of benefits. States may need to cut SNAP benefits or find other funding to cover their share of the cost, potentially leading to reduced eligibility or stricter requirements. This is where you gotta work. And, you know, the military as a whole, we give something to get something. We don't stand there going, I served, give me something. That's not the way a veteran works.
That's lead by example, service before self.
Yes, exactly. So if you're currently on SNAP, I encourage you to, one of the bigger things I forgot all about is you have to recertify every year to continue your SNAP benefits. Why, again, is that a bad thing?
I mean, they make you do it over at the DMV.
They do. Ask Patricia. She just had to do it. I encourage you to get hold of your SNAP representative and figure out how these changes may or may not impact you. Because there's a lot of factors that go into determining your qualification for SNAP. I had a veteran come to me recently, needed food. We gave him food, about $500 worth, took him down to Sam's place. As him, his wife, 3 kids, and then 2 biological kids that he's paying child support for. Now, of the 3 kids that live with him, 1's biological, the 2 are stepchildren that he has not adopted. That impacts his SNAP. It does. Because SNAP looks at it, who do you have that you're responsible for? Your stepchildren that you're not adopted, they're not your responsibility as far as SNAP goes, as far as the government goes. Whether that's right or wrong, we can debate that all day long. But this is the law now. You need to become informed about it, and you can find that link to the big, beautiful bill down at the bottom of this page or top of the page or side of the page, wherever it is you happen to be watching us, unless you're listening to us on the radio, and then you're screwed because you can't read anything. Let's talk about the changes to Medicare and Medicaid. Those of you that are on Medicare, such as myself, stop panicking. Your Medicare is going nowhere. Let me say that again. Your Medicare is going nowhere. Medicaid, however, there will be changing. And let me make the distinction for you, the two of these for you. Medicare, you've paid for your entire life, your entire working life. You've paid into Medicare. Medicaid is you don't make enough money to have health care. Medicaid is changing. It makes significant changes to the federal health care programs, including Medicaid, Medicare, and health insurance marketplaces. As proposed in previous versions of this act, the act includes cuts to the Medicaid program and imposes new requirements on beneficiaries, states, and healthcare providers. The Senate version that passed made changes to the Medicaid, Medicare Services Administration, which handles both of these programs because they're separate programs. The act imposes new requirements on certain Medicaid enrollees, including for low-income adults, by requiring states to add community engagement to their Medicaid plans. Starting December of 2026, not this year, but next December, these individuals would be required to log at least 80 hours per month of community engagement, which could be included as employment, volunteer activities, or education to maintain their Medicaid eligibility. The act allows certain exemptions from these new requirements. including for parents and caretakers of children 13 and younger, disabled veterans, and those who are medically frail. Suppose you're a disabled veteran and are medically frail.
I mean, I think those two go hand in hand.
I would think so. Which includes individuals who are blind or disabled, individuals with physical, intellectual, or developmental abilities, individuals with substance abuse disorders. So you can get Medicaid if you're a druggie. Or disabling mental disorders, and those with serious or complex medical conditions. States may also allow short-term hardship exemptions from this requirement if requested by enrollees who are experiencing certain attenuating circumstances, like the floods in the Hill Country. That would be a extenuating circumstance. Effective December 2026, the Act eliminates the two 5% increases in federal matching funds available to states under the American Rescue Plan as an incentive to adopt Medicare expansion. In addition, effective on the same date, the Act would require all states to conduct eligibility redeterminations for expanded individuals, including many parents and people with disabilities and chronic conditions, every 6 months rather than every 12 months, and conduct more frequent address checks and other eligibility verifications. Why do you think that's in there?
Well, yeah, I mean, you've heard the stories of, people like 125 years old still getting checks from Uncle Sam.
Look,
Beyond the grave.
here's my opinion. If I'm receiving help from you who pay your taxes, and you who make me pay my taxes, if I'm receiving help, then I think you have every right to make sure I still need that help and that I'm still alive.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, it goes without saying. I mean, you go to the DMV every year just to register to get on the road.
That's right. Get my car done. Get a new license.
They're just checking to see whether or not people. If you're still around. And I don't think that's a bad thing. After seeing, some of the reports come out of, the government that there's these people that, they weren't no longer with us for several years, went unnoticed.
Love or hate Doge, they found a lot of money going to waste.
Yeah.
So beginning in 2028, that's 3 years from now, the Act requires states to impose cost-sharing requirements on Medicaid expansion enrollees whose income is just above the federal poverty level, up to $35 per service and capped at 5% of the individual's income. So if you're making money above the poverty level, they're going to ask, the federal government is going to ask that you share the burden of your medical care. I don't think that's a bad thing.
I don't think so either.
But
whether you agree or disagree,
that's the law. Whether you agree, whether you agree or disagree, that's now the law. Come into compliance. Certain services. My pages are sticky today. Certain services, including primary care, mental health, and substance abuse treatments, family planning, emergency care provided in the hospital, emergency departments, and institutional long-term care would be exempt from cost sharing. Let me say that again. Primary care, mental health, substance abuse treatments for those of you people that are on drugs, family planning, emergency care from an emergency room, and institutional long-term care would be exempt from this cost sharing. That's a bunch of people.
Oh, yeah.
That's a bunch of people. The Act limits retrograde coverage in Medicaid from 3 months for all enrollees to 1 month of Medicare expansion enrollees and 2 months for traditional Medicaid enrollees. This Act also limits Medicare eligibility for certain lawfully present individuals and reduces the federal medical assistance program for emergency Medicare for individuals who would otherwise be eligible for Medicare expansion, but for their immigration status. Any idea what that means? I checked.
Well, you go ahead and explain it.
If you're an illegal immigrant, you are currently eligible for Medicaid if you're an illegal immigrant.
Mm-hmm.
This bill makes that no longer so. Illegal immigrants are no longer being covered under Medicaid.
Which I mean, look, other countries already do this. They already do this. They don't cover people's bills if they're not a citizen. I can't go over to some other country and get hurt and then say, okay, well, now it's your government's and your citizens that are on the line to fix me.
That's right.
Why is that a bad thing?
I'm
That
not
is-
saying it's a
not
bad thing. I'm
it's
just
not a
saying
bad-
this
I'm
is the
just saying
law.
there's a lot of heat on this bill, but this is just common sense provisions.
There's only so much money that you can squeeze from me, the taxpayer.
Mhm.
There's only so much there.
Yep.
Something's got to give. And I can't speak for the rest of America, but I will speak for Texans. Texans are extremely generous. I have never, in any of my nonprofit hats that I wear, for any of the nonprofits that I support and serve in, never have I gone to a Texan or a Texas company and said, I need help for this, that they didn't pony up some money. Never. I have never had anybody say no. Doug, no, we're just not going to do it.
Mhm.
Texans are extremely generous, but there's only so much money to go around. This act, this bill rather, the big beautiful bill, also restricts the definition of qualified immigrants to lawfully permitted residents, Cuban and Haitian entries as defined under Section 501A of the Refugee Education Act, citizens of the freely associated states lawfully residing in the U.S., and lawfully residing children and pregnant adults in states that cover them under the Immigrant Children's Health Improvement Act. If you're a resident alien and you need help, you can get Medicaid. If you're a Cuban or Haitian that's come into the United States legally under the Refugee Education Assistance Act of 1980, you can be covered if you need the help. If you're a citizen of the freely associated states, COFA, I have no idea what that is, and you're lawfully residing in the United States and your children are lawfully residing and pregnant adults in the states, you're covered. Note the key word there, lawfully residing in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Contrary to popular belief, the Constitution and the Bill of Rights applies to citizens and lawfully residing residents. Period. End of story. So,
Hitting the nail with a hammer on that one.
say again?
Hitting the nail with a hammer on that one.
Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah. This is a very controversial show. I'm sure that Dick gets death threats about it all the time. So I'm going to turn the mics over to you and tell us what we need to know about this bill and how it's going to affect our taxes. Can I stop paying tax now?
No, I mean, I wish. I mean, it would be great if, it would be great. Everyone says, I wish I couldn't pay taxes. On one side of the coin, without taxes, we wouldn't have our public roads or schools or some of the things that, we need within society. On the other side of the coin, just like you said, there's only so much to go around. We went after the British over
2% tax. Hey. So, but before we get into it,
But-
let me tell the audience about you and Spring Tax Advisors. So, Stephen is an EA, which is
Enrolled agent.
enrolled agent. He can do taxes in all 50 states.
Yes.
Yep. So I don't care where you're at. You need tax help. You need to be calling Stephen. And I'm saying this because I use him. Tanya uses him. And if you're a veteran, what better than having a veteran that knows the tax law to do your taxes? Because when they took Douglandia away from me, I figured I'd have to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars, but Stephen only made me pay tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, well, if you know the law, you're able to use
G-
it.
I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining. Tens of thousands of dollars is a hell of a lot better than 100,000.
Uh-huh.
So, if you have a tax question, you should call Stephen. You should call the Spring Tax Advisors. Even though he's Air Force, he still knows a hell of a lot. He really does. The mic is yours. I'm sorry.
Come on now. There's nothing wrong with us Air Force guys.
Bert.
We saved that one for overseas.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, look, the OBBB Act, one big beautiful bill, right? Changed a lot of things. I mean, a lot of things. And a lot of things that needed, in truth, to be addressed. One of the issues that we were having as a country was generating enough tax revenue to pay down the debt. And really, it's not even, it's more of a spending issue, in my opinion, right? You're spending more than what the GDP allows you to do. So let's talk about, for a second, just economics, right? Plain economics. Tax revenue goes hand in hand with your GDP. GDP, for those of you who do not know, is gross domestic product. It's how much we produce as a society. And the U.S. has one of the largest GDPs, right up there next to China. But our debt keeps going higher. That's because our spending, our needs, things that we want to do, or rather government wants to do, is driving up what we have to borrow to support those missions.
Well, let's put this in everyday layman's terms.
Mm-hmm.
You go to work, you make money, and then you decide that you want a hot tub, but you can't afford a hot tub, so you put it on your credit card. That's debt.
Yes.
And you don't pay off your credit card, so that accumulates more debt every single month.
And interest.
And in interest, yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's economics on the household level.
Oh yeah, that's
when they-
economics 101.
When they say kitchen table issues, this is one of them. You
Mm-hmm.
can't spend more than you make.
Right.
America makes X number of dollars. We can only spend X number of dollars before we have to borrow it from places like China.
Mm-hmm. In fact, China owns a lot of our debt.
Yes, they do.
So, government is now starting to realize, oh shoot, we got a problem. Houston, we got a problem. We are now at a point in our debt where the debt's still climbing and we don't have enough tax revenues, and with the interest rates being the way that they are, a quarter of our taxes goes to pay off the interest alone. That's a big problem. A big, big problem. That's where we're at a tipping point here. Something needed to be done. Well, they came up with a plan to do something about it. And there's really only two ways you can look at this, right? Either two ways you can go. Whenever you're out of money, what do you need to do? You either need to one of three things. You either need to sell more, produce more revenue, so that you have more money, right?
Open up the markets from foreign people tariffs. Open up those markets.
Or you pay more in taxes, right? Tax rates go up. Or you borrow money. Those are the three options. You borrow more money, you're gonna get you're already at a tipping point. You might as well just be buried in it. That's whenever society starts going downhill. If you raise up the taxes, well, then everyone is going to. So you're not going to like the result. I mean, you'd probably be dealing with, 50, 60, 70% in taxes.
So how does this bill help?
This bill, rather than borrowing debt, which it did some, right? But rather than borrowing a crap ton of it, and rather than raising up the taxes, they went with, let's open up the markets. Let's start making it where the GDP can grow, where the U.S. is producing more, and so therefore it's going to generate tax to pay off the tax debt. Not the tax debt, the national debt. The tax debt is the system's debt, but the national debt is a whole different story. So
now, I've heard that there's some incentives tax-wise in this bill. I've heard that if you're making something, manufacturing something, adding to the GDP, that's more favorable than not adding to the GDP.
There's a lot of incentives to drive back manufacturing back to the U.S., where it should be, in my opinion. We used to manufacture a lot of things in the U.S., a lot of things, and for some reason we decided, oh no, we're gonna let China take that back over. Now, granted, they can produce things out a lot cheaper because of their laws over there that allow for cheaper labor, right? But that's a whole different foreign policy issue. But we used to have a lot of manufacturing jobs here in the U.S.
I remember when I was younger, when Walmart was first coming out, I remember Walmart was synonymous with made in the USA.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's China. Everything's from China.
You flip it over. It's from China. China made it.
I'll spend $1 more for something made in the USA. I will. Because it only helps me in the long run.
Mm-hmm. Well, not only that, but if we start producing things here in the U.S. and we start, rather being an importer, being an exporter, that's going to help grow our national wealth. That'll help GDP, help lower down our national debt. It's a win-win scenario. So let's talk about the tax provisions that are going to help make that happen.
Okay.
So from a tax perspective, there are a lot of changes. I mean, you're talking about over 900-page bill, and there's just so much to talk about. So we're just going to try to cover as much as we can. There's a few things that changed. The tax brackets was going to be one of them, but let's talk about the standard deduction first. The standard deduction, if you're single, almost $16,000, $15,750. So what does that mean? You can make $15,750
before you pay any taxes on it.
Before you pay any tax, no tax on it. Now, if you're head of household, meaning you have a dependent, but you're not married, that is $23,625. Now, married filing joint, twice as much as single. it goes up to $31,500.
That's more than I make in the year.
That's more than what most people make, actually.
So if I file a standard deduction, does that mean the government's going to give me back money?
If you make less than the standard deduction and you pay tax on it, then yes, you should get a tax refund.
Well, how do I get a tax refund if I don't pay any tax?
Well, if you don't pay any tax, well, then you don't get a tax refund.
What am I paying you for?
Well, you're paying me, to speak the truth.
Oh, okay.
So, now, I also want to talk about something, we all heard, Trump say, oh, there's no tax on Social Security. That's incorrect. But he's talking out of context. What they've essentially done is raise up the standard deduction and then added a temporary senior deduction. Temporary means that the Congress can either decide later on down the road to keep it or let it go. Meaning it's here for now. We don't know if it's here to stay.
Kind of like the tax cuts from his first term.
Right. Yep. So the temporary senior deduction adds another $6,000 to that standard deduction.
So it's $36,000?
So if you're married, filing joint, right, the standard deduction would be $37,500. Now, if you're on Social Security, a lot of people who are on Social Security don't make more than that.
But what about these guys that are on Social Security but still working? That's
Now,
a benefit to them.
It is a benefit to them, right? Because you get a higher standard deduction. You're paying some in tax. Whenever you go to file, it's more than likely than not that you would get back some of the taxes that you paid in. So that's what he's talking about. He's not saying, well, that it was law, that, we got it passed where there's no taxes on Social Security. There is provisions in here that would make it to where the majority of people who do draw on Social Security, they're not going to pay any tax.
Let me
because they don't make enough.
Let me say that again. If you're on Social Security, you may or may not have to pay tax.
Correct.
But you need somebody like you to figure that out for them.
Correct.
If you are taking Social Security and you're working, you're making a good living, you definitely need somebody like you to figure that out this year.
Mm-hmm.
You just can't fire the easy.
Now, I'm right. I mean, you would need to do the calculations to figure out whether or not if there's any tax on it. But with these changes, compared to how it was prior, it's more likely than not, it will help lower down the tax on those who are paying taxes, and it will help those senior citizens who are above the age of 65 to pay less in tax or no tax at all. Whereas before prior, you might have been paying tax.
That's a good thing. There have been years, like last year, where I paid tax.
Right. Now, let's talk about the phase out. For those of you who do not know what a phase out is, it's when a benefit starts to lose its benefit. So it goes off of AGI, adjusted gross income. And the way that you'd figure out, it's on the tax form. It's a block on there called adjusted gross income. You can figure out from the calculations. But if your adjusted gross income, if you're below 75,000 single or 150,000 married filing joint, and you're over you're 65 or older, you're going to be eligible for that $6,000 extra standard deduction.
That's a good bit of money.
That's a good bit of money.
Because you're also making a whole bunch of money.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the years when I made $75,000 to $150,000. I do remember those years.
So what's going to happen, right? What usually happens whenever you pay less in tax is that becomes more money for the economy. Whenever you have more money for the economy, that paves the way to a higher GDP. That paves the way to tax revenues being generated. So,
Well, let's talk about
from
the
an
two things.
economic
Let me,
perspective.
let me talk. Let's talk about the two things that we've heard all about: no tax on tips and no tax on overtime. That's isn't true. Why is that?
All right, so no tax on tips. Let's talk about that for a second. No tax on tips. It's only true to a certain point, and it's only in industries that was originally getting tips. Now the IRS has yet to release that list as to what industries, but I mean I would imagine it's going to be things like restaurants, salons, those industries that you would normally hand a tip. So
Pizza
folks
delivery.
don't get any bright ideas or, oh, I'm going to pay all my employees now in, tips. It's not going to work that way. Please speak to an advisor before you go down that path, right? So the no tax on tips, and let me pull that up real fast so that I can give you the facts on that.
Now this is important because if you're working and you get a tip, you're now thinking, well, I don't need to declare that tip, so I can't be taxed on it. That's not true.
Well, it's never been true.
Well, pay me in cash so I don't have to report it.
Anyways, the change, right, has to deal with you can make $25,000 in tips, must be cash. So, and that's a keyword here, right? Some people think, well, what if I get a tip, but he gives me a car? That's one hell of a tip, right? But because it's not cash, verbatim, it's not a qualified tip.
Well, suppose you go to a
So,
restaurant and you give somebody a tip on your credit card. You just add the tip. Is that considered cash?
That would be considered cash, right? Because it's a form of monetary, right? But they're not including property in here in terms of tips. So folks don't get confused if someone tips you a car, which is quite nice. There's going to be tax on that. So don't get any ideas. But so you can have $25,000 in tips and it not be taxable. Now that's going to help a lot of our people that, they work minimum wage. They receive most of their income in tips, like waiters. Those people that are in the lower brackets, it's going to help them, which has long been needed due to all the inflation. I mean, the price of rent, the price of food, gas. Well, gas isn't so bad anymore.
Well, I think this is only fair. It's been decades since I've waited tables, but when my daughter was doing it, she's making less than minimum wage because of tips.
Right.
Well, that don't always work out well.
Right. Now the phase out for that, right, is $150,000 if you're single, $350,000 if married, filing joint.
That's a hell of a lot of tips.
Mm-hmm. Now the deduction is $25,000 if you're married, filing joint, $12,500 if you're single. So you can make, if you're single, $12,500 in tips and it not be taxable.
So everybody that's going bowling tonight, make sure you tip Dick.
Now let's talk about the overtime, right? Because that was one of your questions.
That was one of the questions.
Was how is overtime going to be applied?
Because he said there'll be no tax on overtime. But when I read the bill, that's not what it says.
So, right, the tax on overtime, same thing. It's the same thing. It's $25,000, married, filing joint, single $12,500. The overtime is $150,000 to $300,000 for single, $300,000 married, filing joint. It's the phase out. So, and it's only going to apply to overtime wages.
Now, let me ask you a
Now-
question here.
Mhm.
Can the employer, under this bill, say, okay, since I have to pay you overtime, time and a half, and you're not getting taxed on that, I'm not going to pay you time and a half? Does
There's
this bill
now-
supersede the other laws?
I can't speak to that because that's more of a legal question. Right?
Okay,
Now we're
I
getting
can.
out
I
of
checked.
now we're getting out of tax, so I can't answer that question.
I checked.
All right.
No, if you're under a contract, if you're working, and if somebody hires you, you're under contract. Okay, whether you've signed something or not, if you're working for somebody and they're paying you above the table, you have a work contract with them, so they are required to pay you overtime. They're required to.
That's
This
right.
tax on the overtime has nothing to do with what they're required. They still have to pay you overtime. But however, they no longer have to track that overtime for tax purposes. So they say you work 60 hours. Well, they're just going to track the 60 hours. They're not going to track well, it would be 60 hours minus this amount of money because now there's no tax on overtime. That's for the individual and their tax preparers to figure out.
Now, you're correct on that, right? So, folks, one of the things that you don't want to do is go up to your employer and say, hey, now that there's no tax on overtime, I don't want any taxes to be coming out of that overtime. They are still required to pay tax on that overtime. You will get that back whenever you go to file. So just know that.
Cameron, are you listening? Because we had this conversation. I have a friend of mine who's getting married, and her husband is a driver. He's a commercial truck driver, and he's got a boatload of overtime on all of his trips. So that was one of his questions. Are they taking taxes out of that overtime? Yes, they are. But you, Mr. Driver, when you file your taxes, if you do it correctly, that comes off of your taxes. That's what's meant by no tax on overtime. I mean, you're getting more money in your paycheck because you're not. But you may get it back when you file your taxes if you file your taxes correctly.
Mm-hmm. And I would get some advisor to help you out with that one. Now, something else that's going to change is salt. Do you like double taxation?
I do. I like it.
You like double taxation?
Patriot doesn't cook with double taxation. I'm always adding more onto it.
No, I mean, in truth, do you like paying taxes
No.
on stuff that you already
No.
pay taxes on? Well, I don't either.
Thus the nonprofit.
Salt was one of the things, and by the way, salt, typically applies to the state taxes that you pay, right? Has to do with the taxes outside of federal taxes that you pay on. One of the things, sales tax, property tax, gasoline tax in California.
Gotta love that.
Any tax that's outside of the federal that you pay, that's what the salt applies to. Now, it was $10,000. It was a big double taxation issue, meaning why are we paying tax on money that I already paid taxes on? They got rid of it back in 2017. It's been $10,000 for a long period of time. Now they're bumping it back up to $40,000, which is great because here in Texas we pay a lot of property tax.
Yes, we do.
Florida, they pay a lot of property tax. Property tax has been one of the tools that a lot of states use to generate their revenue. Typically, it's more than $10,000. The vast majority of time.
My property tax is.
For those who own property, it's usually more than $10,000 that you're paying taxes in. So this has been one of those issues that I've been hoping that they would address. They addressed it this time. They raised it up to $40,000. So now that's going to eliminate some of that double taxation that we were seeing prior, which is going to help phenomenally within the for those who itemize, right? Another thing is the qualified business income deduction, QBID. For those who own a small business, you get a 20% deduction, automatic.
And nonprofits count as that.
Well, nonprofit, you're not paying any tax regardless.
Well, it helps you. Let's say that you have a nonprofit and you're purchase a storefront, or you're renting a storefront from that. It helps you in that way.
No,
Why not?
no, because nonprofits pay nothing in tax. They operate off of donations. Okay, QBID doesn't apply to nonprofits.
But it applies to me who has a business.
Yes. It applies to those with small businesses. Let's say you own a mom and pop store. You're going to get a 20% automatic deduction there at the bottom line. So it's going to help lower down the taxes for those who typically file on like a Schedule C or maybe an S corporation.
And that 20,000 is off the bottom line.
20%.
20% off
Yeah.
the bottom line.
Off, yeah, correct. So there's a little bit of a formula that goes into that, too complicated to even get into, but
What's my time, Dick?
that is the general.
4 minutes?
Now, there's something else. Educators. They used to exclude sports coaches from that. Not anymore. So you remember how you could take 500 if you were providing supplies for a classroom, and you spent money trying to help either providing pens or pencils. These educators were spending money in their classrooms. They still are. God bless our educators, right? But they realized that, well, gym coaches were being excluded from that. Health is, physical health should be something that is addressed within us.
So you're saying coaches now are included?
They are now included. They added that verbiage.
Let me put this out. To Coach Yates from Patriotic Restoration, you're a coach. So all those golf balls that he's purchasing for the golf team,
Right.
he can now take that as a deduction.
Up to the $500. So
Coach,
I wish
call my friend Stephen.
I wish they would have increased it more for our educators, because truth be told, I can't tell you how many times I've seen them cough up.
$500 is nothing for them to
It's
spend.
nothing, is it?
Nothing for them
Yeah.
to spend.
But unfortunately, they didn't. So, but the coaches should be happy now about that.
Hey, $500 is $500.
No tax on car loan interest. Let's talk about that. They did that because they want the markets to be brought back within the vehicles.
Explain that, because I haven't heard this before.
If you go to purchase a new vehicle,
Has to be new.
has to be new, made in the U.S. There's some other stipulations to it, but also, or if you refinanced, it's going to apply to this year and the next 4 years. You now don't have to pay not any tax, but it's a deduction, right? Much similar to your mortgage interest, right? If you're itemizing, you can take that interest and itemize it. Now
That's a
going forward.
huge savings.
Yeah, big, especially at a time whenever interest rates is high. If you have a vehicle and you have plans of buying a new vehicle, definitely look into that.
Allison, are you listening?
Because it could help as a deduction on your taxes going forward, that interest that you pay.
I've got to get my daughter to talk to you. Listen, we're almost out of time, but there's still a bunch of stuff you have to cover.
I don't even think we've covered a fourth of it. So
Would you come back for a podcast?
I would.
All right, you've heard it here. We're going to have to end for today because I am out of time. But Stephen's going to come back, and we're going to do some podcasts to delve into this because I'm finding out things that I didn't know. But then again, I didn't read all 900 pages. If you want to read all 900 pages, please check the link below. If you do have some questions, I encourage you to email Stephen. His contact information is below. And by all means, keep watching the Veterans Air Facebook page for future podcasts about this topic. I want to thank you all for watching today, and we'll be back next month, which is September. Don't know what we're going to do, but we'll do something interesting. You know that. I will leave you today, as I always leave you, with this song from the Warrior Song Project. And as we're listening to the song, let us remember our brothers and sisters who are today still in harm's way to stand and protect our liberties and our freedom. If you are wearing the uniform, I want to say to you, thank you. I want to say to you, I am proud of you. And until next month, stay safe and stay vigilant.
With a need to bleed you when the light goes green. Best believe I'm in the zone to be. From a yin to my yang to Z. Put a grin on my chin when you come to me. Cause I'll win, I'm a one of a kind. And I'll bring death to the place you're about to be. Another river of blood running under my feet. Forged in a fire lit long ago. Stand next to me, you'll never stand alone. I'm last to leave, but the first to go. Lord, make me dead before you make me old. I feed on the fear of the devil inside of the enemy. Faces in my sight. Aim with a hand, shoot with a mind, kill with a heart like Arctic ice.
I am a soldier and I'm marching on.
I am a soldier and I'm marching on.
I am a warrior, this is my song.
I am a warrior and this is my song. I'm basking the glow of the rising war. Lay waste to the ground of an enemy shore. Wade through the blood spilled on the floor. And if another one stands, I'll kill some more. Bullet in the breach and a fire in me. Like a cigarette thrown to gasoline. If death don't bring you fear, I swear you'll fear these marching feet. Come to the nightmare, come to me. Deep down in the dark where the devil be. In the mall where the jaws and the razor teeth. Where the brimstone burns and the angel weeps. Crawl to the gods of across your path. And my silhouette hangs like a body bag. Hope is a moment now long past. The shadow of death is the one I cast. I am a soldier and I'm marching on. I am a warrior and this is my song. My eyes are steel and my gaze is long. I am a warrior and this is my song.
We're not just going to shoot the bastard. We're going to cut out their living guts and use them to grease the treads of our tanks. We're going to murder those lousy bastards by the bushel.
Now I live lean and I mean to inflict the grief. And the least of me is still out of your reach. The killing machine's gonna do the deed until the river runs dry and my last breath leaves. Chin in the air with a head held high. I'll stand in the path of the enemy line. Feel no fear, know my pride. For God
you sons of